distortions we would be using in our thinking, and the progression, that we've been making as we are going through this module is that on day one it was about my thoughts are not facts. Then we moved to understanding and becoming aware of the fact that my mind has predictable distortions. Now today we will be exploring and learning about what do I do when one of these thoughts appear, or when I realize that I have been using one or more of the distortions that we spoke about yesterday. Now the way to sort of solve for this or work through these distortions uses CBT, which is known as cognitive behavior therapy, in which we use reasoning, we use the mind, this ability of the mind to talk through something. And by doing that, looking at a situation differently. So that's the technique we're going to follow. That's the process we're going to follow. And through that, we learn to investigate, our mind instead of believing um, what the mind says. So again, the movement as we'll go through is from this thought must be true to let's investigate this thought and let's be curious about what it's saying, or if it's true or not. So questioning it rather than just believing it blindly. So so yeah, like it's like imagining, if we can imagine hiring a detective to investigate our thoughts, and that's what we're going to do today. Um, Practicing that together. I'll go through the theory of how we what the steps are like. So it's a 5-step process, and then at the end we will take a situation, and we will work through it to see if we can become adept at investigating our thoughts. So again, to start, I'd like you to sit comfortably, close your eyes, just for a few minutes to ground ourselves, bring ourselves to the session so we are more relaxed, and we are more present. So just closing your eyes. Um, Finding your breath. Just taking a minute to feel your body, become aware of your body, turning your awareness. And then if you notice a thought, then not completing the thought, not following the thought, simply noticing a thought has appeared. And it's almost like you can see it in front of you rather than it becoming you. And this ability to observe, we have a thought in psychology, we call it cognitive diffusion. In mindfulness, we call it witnessing. Vedanta calls it being the observer. But it comes to the same thing, that we are able to watch the mind as a different entity than it being completely me. And then setting an intention for ourselves that I want to become more curious about my thoughts, about my beliefs. With that intention, slowly just coming back and opening your eyes. Now, I'll just quickly revise what we spoke about yesterday, because we explored the 6 thinking traps that we can have, which are known as cognitive distortions. These are recurring patterns of thinking that constantly produce negative emotions in us. And these negative emotions are more than the situation warrants. These are universal distortions, but we see, and research shows that there are higher rates of several key patterns in women. So, in some ways, call it socialization, that because women are, say, rewarded for having more relational sensitivity. So, we strengthen some of these cognitive habits in order to socially survive in a world. Um, so yeah, so these six patterns, these six key patterns. One was catastrophizing, in which we take a negative event as the beginning of the worst possible outcome. Something small happens, and we think that it's going to lead to a worst case scenario. So a headache can become a tumor. And each time that we repeat the catastrophizing thought in the mind and we act on it, we believe it, the neural pathway is strengthened. Second one was mind reading. So it's assuming I know what the other person is thinking, and it's almost always negative. Um, this pattern can be very costly because it can produce emotional and behavioral responses to events that have actually not happened. So it can sometimes, be negatively impactful of relationships. Third one was personalization, where we take responsibility for things that are not ours to carry. Others' moods can become our fault, and things can feel like, personal failure. Children's distress can feel like, inadequacy as a parent. Now, this pattern again is common in women who grow up, say, in an environment where they could be managing other people's emotional states. Fourth one was all or nothing thinking, or black or white thinking. And in this, we perceive situations in binary terms. So either, I've been perfect or I've failed, completely successful or completely worthless. There's no middle ground, no partial credit, no recognition of the complexity that could be involved in real life situations. The fifth one was emotional reasoning. So in this, we treat a feeling as a fact. I feel like a failure, therefore I must be a failure. I feel like this will go badly, therefore it will go badly. The feeling is real, but the conclusion that we may derive may not be real. And the last cognitive distortion was self critical narrative, which is there's an ongoing internal commentary going on in our minds about our performance, our appearance, our worth. And unlike other patterns, this one often runs continuously rather than in specific triggered moments. So that's just a quick revision of the six distortion that we use. Again, these are universal. We all tend to use them. Now, again, just to sort of stress upon this one more time, that why does the brain do this? Um, and we saw that the brain's strongest needs, one of the brain's strongest needs is certainty. So this explains why we can often accept, the first explanation that the mind gives to us because it reduces uncertainty, even if it isn't accurate. And feeling certain about something is for the brain better. I mean, it feels better than not knowing. So, even say negative uncertainty feels better to the brain than ambiguity. So, the brain doesn't do very well with I don't know. It'll prefer having a negative belief. It'll prefer having a negative explanation about something than relying on I don't know. So that's how the brain, in some ways, is wired. It doesn't go one step further and say, is this actually true? And it doesn't want to collect all the evidence. it just needs enough evidence in that moment to support the belief, and then it quickly latches on to that, and then refuses to look, the other way, or want to find more. And there's another interesting concept in psychology, which is confirmation bias. Now, what confirmation bias does is that there is an existing belief in the brain. So, if my existing belief is that um, I'm a failure, the brain continues to notice evidence that confirms my existing beliefs. And it ignores evidence that contradicts my existing belief. So, again, if I believe that people don't like me, I will notice every time a plan is cancelled, every time somebody doesn't reply to me. But I will ignore every invitation that I get or every time a person has responded to me. Anything that reinforces my existing belief, even if it's sporadic, comes once in a while, the brain quickly latches onto it and says, "Oh, I told you so. No, no one likes you. People don't like you." It continues to remember mistakes, it continues to remember failures, and it is very fast to forget our successes. It's very fast to forget, um, any instances, that can prove the brain wrong. Now, it's not that the brain is lying; it's just filtering out. So, um, all the evidence that's contradicting to this one set of beliefs I have is not being acknowledged by me. And it gives us a chance to think if there is a belief about you that you have in your mind and you've been collecting evidence for. So maybe taking just a few moments to reflect if there's something you believe about yourself and you feel like, you're just looking out to tell yourself, oh, look, I was right. And yeah, I mean, we could all have those, but the good thing is that we can challenge these thoughts and we can work through them. The most interesting part of the session today is now, which is the 5-step method. Um, and when we use these 5 steps, we can investigate our thoughts. Distressing thoughts will continue to appear in our minds. It's not like we will never think negatively again, or we will not feel unsure. We won't have limiting beliefs about us or other people. But we can, through these 5 steps, challenge the thought and come to a different conclusion. So, what are these 5 steps? And we will do this, at the end as an activity. We will take one example, or you can take your own example, and you can work through these steps. So, just to check if you're able to diagnose. Now, step number 1 is writing the thought exactly as it has appeared, not the edited version or a logical version, just the exact raw version of the thought. So, say the thought that appears after a bad meeting or a bad presentation, I always ruin everything. Or the thought could be, he thinks I'm incompetent, I'm too much for people. Whatever the thought is, just honestly writing down that thought. There is no editing in it. That's step number 1. Step number 2 is we name the trap. So these 6 distortions that we see, maybe we can make a list of them and then check our thought with the label that it falls into or the category it falls into. Which of the 6 is it? And just naming it creates some distance. Oh, I was mind reading. It immediately reduces the power of the thought. Um, And with this distance, we can introduce some flexibility between the thought that just a few moments ago felt so certain, and now that it has a label, it falls into one of the categories of thinking traps. There is immediately some distance, some relief. And the third step is to ask, is this a fact or a feeling? Now, you could go one step further. You could say, what actual evidence exists for this thought? And then, what evidence exists against it? Is there any evidence against it? So, step number 3 again is asking, is this a fact or is it a feeling? Is it an interpretation of the situation? You're not asking if this is positive. You're not asking, can I make myself feel better? We are not practicing positive psychology or positive thinking here. We're just checking, what do I actually know about this? It's like a scientist, you're trying to find out. Fourth step is find one piece of evidence against it. You don't need 10, you just need one. Only one thought which proves your initial thought wrong, or only one instance, one evidence that can say that what you're believing as an absolute is not true. And one is enough to create an opening, and then write it down. Step number 5, write the balanced replacement thought, not the opposite, not a positive thought, just an accurate replacement thought. So, for instance, if your initial thought was that I'm incompetent, an accurate thought would be as a replacement, I made a mistake in that meeting. That does not make me incompetent. It makes me someone who made a mistake. And then you say it out loud because your brain needs to hear your voice saying it to, really believe it even more. Again, it's not a positive thought, it's just a more balanced thought. I'm terrible at presentations can be replaced by I struggled with this presentation. That's different from being terrible. And that process, it creates a distinction, and it starts to change your identity. It starts to change your beliefs about yourself and about other situations, about other people. And one disclaimer that I want to, give before we move on to the activity is that positive thinking sometimes does not work. So if your initial thought was I'm a failure and you want to replace it with I'm amazing, your brain might reject it. Because at this time, the brain knows that this is not an honest thought. And therefore, what we are trying to achieve is balanced thinking and not optimism. Um, and balanced thinking is more like I made a mistake, moving on from I am a mistake. So yeah, that's just, one disclaimer that I'd like to give, that we are not practicing overtly positive thinking because the brain is not stupid. It knows when we are lying to it. And we want to tell it the truth. And the truthful version is that we all make mistakes and we could have made a mistake. So yeah, thanks. Thanks for staying, with me until now. Now we could use an example. If anyone would like to volunteer, we can take that example and move through the 5 steps, or you could do that yourself for yourself. So if you can bring in, say, a paper or pencil, or you could even type it out if you want to. Thinking of a situation then where you feel like it's upsetting for you. So connecting to an upsetting thought in your mind. So yeah, bringing to mind a recent upsetting thought. And if you have been able to find a situation like that, Yeah, I feel a person is always creating obstruction and hates me. Okay. So that's your original thought. This person hates me. That's the original thought. And that's step one. So writing down the thought exactly as it has appeared. This person is always creating obstruction for me and hates me. Now, step two, can you name the trap? Which one of the six could this be? Is it catastrophizing? You're thinking of the worst possible outcome, mind reading, all or nothing thinking, seeing things in black and white. Will it be personalization, emotional reasoning, treating a feeling like a fact, self critical narrative? Maybe you think it's more than one of the traps. So, Abhilasha, I'd ask you if you think that it falls in any of the six traps. And for anyone else as well who's uh, maybe catastrophizing sometimes, could it also be all or nothing thinking, where because hate is a very strong word, so it could be that um, maybe, yeah, it's somewhere ahead on the scale of how much you think the person likes you, but is it zero? Is it zero? Or is it two or three? On the scale of 1 to 10 or 0 to 10. Mhm. Okay. So you're saying catastrophizing, is it because you think that they will do, say, bad things all the time, or they might do something really bad that you are not able to handle? So you're saying catastrophizing because you think that those actions could lead to the worst possible outcome? Mm. Okay. Okay, yeah. So then you're thinking that because this person does not like me and they haven't been good to me, they've done things to obstruct me, as you said. In the future, they might do something that's really big, and it could be something really bad, and I might not be able to handle it. Okay, okay. Now, step three in this process would be to ask if this is a fact or a feeling. Now, at this point, you may see, as you've said, on chat, that this is a fact because I have evidence that they've done bad things, and so therefore, it's not a feeling; it's a fact. But I would like to check with you that because catastrophizing means that it's the worst case scenario, and I will not be able to handle it. I will not be able to handle it. Is that a fact or a feeling? Yeah, it's a feeling. I will not be able to handle it, not a fact, because you are here today and you have, um, you know, come through some of those bad things. Now, step four would be to find one piece of evidence against it. So you could find one piece of evidence against feeling that, this catastrophizing that's happening in the mind, something really bad might happen. I might lose everything, or I will not be able to handle it. Is there any evidence which tells you that no, that's not true? Any evidence that you can find which tells you or reassures you that um, actually this feeling is not true? And for anyone else also who's doing the activity, can you find any evidence? Yeah, but I'm asking you to find evidence in yourself where you have been able to overcome this obstacle and you've been able to, because catastrophizing relies on the fact that it's a situation where I won't be able to do something, which is why it's worst case scenario. My life will fall apart. Okay, you are saying I have overcome. So then, if you have overcome, it tells you that it's not true that the worst will happen and your life will be a disaster. So that's step 4. Now, step 5, if you had to write a balanced replacement thought, what would it be? Okay. So, so say, your initial thought was that there is a person in my life who's always creating obstructions for me, who hates me. That's your original thought. The trap that is happening is that you are catastrophizing, right? So you said that because this person hates me and because they're always creating problems for me, my life will be a disaster. There'll be a point where I will not be able to handle. It might be a situation, which I am not able to overcome. So the balance thought, I think, in this case could be that people around me could be doing whatever they are doing. However, I have the confidence that I can overcome this situation. I have the confidence in myself that if such a situation comes, I will be able to overcome it because I have done it in the past. Does that sound like a thought that could be helpful when you have these thoughts? Yeah. Yeah, and you can even use it in other ways. So you can say, I have faith in my life that I will be able to overcome difficult people or deal with difficult people because difficult people are all around us. Sometimes we do encounter difficult people, but we can rely on our own ability to handle them or for our life, to take us through those situations. So whatever you have more trust in or more faith in, you can change and create a statement that can help ease the anxiety that you feel that somebody um, can disrupt your life or can create obstacles in your life. Okay, Vardhani is saying something. Yes, this happened to me. She could not log into her account, got a message. Your account is locked. Contact the management to change password. Yeah, I catastrophizing. I was so proud of immediately after secondary place that yeah, I know it's yeah, exactly. Yeah. So so again, these thoughts will appear. It's not like suddenly we will stop having negative thoughts. We can have negative thoughts. We can have intense thoughts about health, about relationships, about ourselves, beliefs, but we can challenge those thoughts. And initially, it might feel like very mechanical that I'm doing this just because I need to do this. But with practice, we will learn that we will have more and more confidence in our ability to challenge our own minds, you know so we will learn that our mind can be an extraordinary storyteller. It can tell stories, but its aim is to protect us. However, we can create some distance between the stories that the brain tells us and the truth. So we can learn to be better investigators. And we can ease this anxiety that we can feel from time to time about situations, people, our own selves, by giving us a more realistic statement. When we think of worst case scenarios, we can even think of a best case scenario. And then come somewhere in between, right? This is the worst case. My brain is telling me the story, it's catastrophizing. What is the best case? Okay, the best case might not be true, but then what is the realistic thing that might happen? So just creating more possibilities for the brain, you know, Why should it always rely on the worst that can happen? Because that creates so much distress, so much anxiety. We stay in our minds. We live in an unhappy place in the mind then. So with this exercise, with this practice, the more we do it, um, the better we become at questioning our own selves. Yeah, okay. I hope we could take back something, and I hope that we can practice this more in daily life. Learn to challenge ourselves, learn to challenge our own thinking, our beliefs, because a lot of them might not be true. And again, not blaming ourselves because we all tend to have them. These are universal. All of us tend to fall into these traps more often than we realize. Any questions? We can have them now. Or else, I'd urge you to practice this when you have the time today, tomorrow, and when we meet tomorrow. We can take either more examples, or if you think that there is any, you got stuck somewhere, um, you were not able to, go further, then we can take that up together, when we meet tomorrow. So, um, yeah, we'll be going ahead tomorrow with this, and we'll be investigating tomorrow some of our beliefs. So, what are the core beliefs that have brought us here, where we start falling into these traps, and how are they different from our thoughts? That's what we'll try to find out. So, thank you for being here. In case you want to connect with me on Instagram, this is my Instagram handle, Nidhi_therapy. You could find me there. And yeah, we'll meet tomorrow. Thank you for practicing with me, spending your time here. Again, any questions, please feel free to share, to ask. Okay, have a good day, have a good evening wherever you are, and see you soon. Bye.